There is something ancient waiting inside you, something quiet, patient, eternal. The Greeks called it psyche, we call it soul. But what is it really? What lives within us that feels, that thinks, that reaches beyond the body toward something higher, something true? Tonight we rest with these questions, not to answer them urgently, not to solve them like puzzles, but to let them settle around us like evening light. We turn to Plato, the ancient philosopher who walked the streets of Athens 24 centuries ago, who spoke of souls and selves and the nature of what it means to be human. His words have traveled through time, through countless hands and voices, arriving here, now, in this quiet moment with you. Plato believed the soul was immortal. He believed it existed before birth and would continue after death. He believed the soul was the truest part of us, more real than the body, more lasting than any earthly thing. To understand ourselves, he taught, we must first understand our souls. We must look inward, past the surface, past the noise of daily life, into the depths where something timeless resides. But Plato's vision of the soul was not simple. It was not a single, unified thing. He saw the soul as composed of three parts, three aspects that live together within us, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict. There is the rational part, the seat of wisdom and thought. There is the spirited part, the source of courage and emotion. And there is the appetitive part, the home of desires and physical needs. These three parts form a whole, but they do not always agree. They pull in different directions. They want different things. Imagine the soul as a chariot, Plato suggested. The rational part is the charioteer, holding the reins, trying to guide the journey. The spirited and appetitive parts are two horses, each with its own nature, its own strength, its own will. One horse is noble, responsive, aligned with reason. The other is wild, unruly, driven by impulse and hunger. The charioteer must manage both, must find balance, must steer the chariot toward what is good and true. This image is gentle, almost dreamlike, but it speaks to something we all know. We have all felt the conflict within ourselves. We have all experienced the tension between what we know is right and what we desire in the moment. We have all struggled to quiet the noise, to find harmony among the different voices that live inside us. Plato saw this struggle not as weakness, but as the fundamental condition of being human. The soul is not broken because it contains multitudes. It is beautiful, complex, worthy of understanding. And so we begin our exploration softly, slowly, allowing the ideas to unfold at their own pace. There is no hurry here. There is no test at the end, no task to complete. We are simply resting in the presence of ancient wisdom, letting it wash over us like water, like breath, like the quiet rhythm of night. Plato lived in Athens during what we now call the Golden Age of Greece. The city was alive with ideas, with debate, with art and democracy, and the constant questioning of everything. Into this world, Plato was born, around 428 BCE, into an aristocratic family. He was educated in the ways of his time: poetry, music, athletics, philosophy. As a young man, he encountered Socrates, the legendary philosopher who walked the marketplace asking questions, probing assumptions, seeking truth through dialogue. Socrates became Plato's teacher, his mentor, his philosophical father. For years, Plato listened and learned, watching Socrates engage with everyone from politicians to poets, from craftsmen to sophists. Socrates claimed to know nothing, yet through his questions, he revealed the ignorance of those who thought themselves wise. He taught that the unexamined life was not worth living, that virtue was knowledge, that the soul mattered more than reputation or wealth. When Socrates was put to death by the Athenian state in 399 BCE, condemned for corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, Plato was devastated. The loss shaped everything that followed. It drove Plato to preserve Socrates' teachings, to continue his mission, to build upon his ideas. Most of what we know about Socrates comes from Plato's writings, dialogues where Socrates appears as a character, speaking, questioning, searching for truth. But Plato was more than a recorder of his teacher's words. He was a philosopher in his own right, with his own vision, his own system of thought. He founded the Academy in Athens, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. There, students gathered to study philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and the arts. The academy lasted for nearly 900 years, a testament to the power of Plato's ideas. Plato wrote extensively, creating dialogues that explored every aspect of human existence: justice, love, beauty, knowledge, politics, the nature of reality itself. But threading through all his work was a deep concern with the soul. What is it? Where does it come from? What happens to it after death? How should it be cared for? These questions were not abstract puzzles for Plato. They were urgent, vital, connected to how we should live. He believed that most people live in ignorance, mistaking shadows for reality, pursuing pleasures that fade, chasing honors that mean nothing, accumulating wealth that cannot be taken beyond death. The soul, Plato taught, is neglected, covered over, forgotten. We attend to our bodies, our reputations, our possessions, but we ignore the part of us that is truly real, truly lasting. This is the tragedy of human life, that we spend our days caring for the temporary while the eternal withers from neglect. But it does not have to be this way. Plato offered another path, a way of living that honors the soul, that tends to it, that allows it to flourish. This path requires philosophy, which Plato understood not as academic study, but as a way of life, a practice of caring for the soul through the pursuit of wisdom. Philosophy, he said, is preparation for death, not because it is morbid or pessimistic, but because it trains us to identify with the soul rather than the body, to recognize what is eternal within us, to let go of what cannot last. As we rest here, breathing slowly, allowing these ideas to settle, we begin to see the outline of Plato's vision. The soul is real, the soul is immortal, the soul is complex, divided, in need of care. The body is temporary, a vehicle, a shell that houses the soul for a time. Death is not the end but a transition, a return, a going home. And life, this earthly existence, is an opportunity, a chance to awaken, to remember, to align the soul with truth and goodness and beauty. Plato's philosophy is vast, intricate, woven from many threads. But at its heart is this simple, radical claim: you are not your body, you are not your thoughts, your emotions, your desires. You are your soul, and the soul, when rightly understood, is divine. Let us explore this claim slowly, gently, allowing each layer to reveal itself in its own time. The soul, for Plato, is the principle of life. It is what animates the body, what makes movement possible, what allows us to think and feel and act. Without the soul, the body is inert, lifeless, like a statue or a corpse. The soul is the difference between being alive and being dead. It is breath, motion, awareness, presence. But the soul is more than just the life force. It is also the seat of identity, the essence of who we are. When we ask, "Who am I?" we are not asking about the body, which changes constantly, growing and aging and eventually decaying. We are asking about something deeper, something that persists through all the changes, something that remains somehow the same, even as everything else transforms. For Plato, this persistent something is the soul. The soul, he believed, existed before it entered the body. In a realm beyond this physical world, the soul dwelt among eternal truths, among what Plato called the forms, the perfect, unchanging templates of everything that exists, the form of beauty, the form of justice, the form of the good. These forms are not physical objects. They cannot be seen or touched. They are abstract, eternal, perfect. And the soul, in its pre-earthly existence, knew them directly. Then, for reasons Plato does not fully explain, the soul descended into the body, into this world of matter and change and imperfection. It forgot what it once knew. It became entangled in the physical, distracted by sensations and desires, confused by the constant flux of earthly existence. This descent is not a punishment exactly, but it is a kind of fall, a forgetting, a loss of clarity. Yet the soul retains a dim memory of the forms, a faint echo of its former knowledge. This is why, Plato believed, we can recognize truth when we encounter it, why beauty strikes us with such force, why we long for justice and goodness even in a world that often lacks them. We are remembering. We are recognizing something we once knew, something inscribed in the soul itself. Learning, then, is not the acquisition of new information, but the recollection of what the soul already knows. Education is a process of awakening, of bringing the buried knowledge to the surface, of clearing away the confusion and distraction so that the soul can see clearly again. This is why Socrates, in Plato's dialogues, never claims to teach. He only asks questions, helps others remember, guides them toward truths they already possess but have forgotten. There is something deeply reassuring in this idea. It suggests that wisdom is not foreign to us, not something we must import from outside. It is already within us, waiting to be rediscovered. The soul knows the way. It carries the light, even when that light is hidden beneath layers of forgetfulness and fear. As we breathe here, quietly, we might sense this truth ourselves. There is a knowing inside us, a quiet certainty that does not come from books or teachers, but from somewhere deeper. When we are still enough, when we let the noise fall away, we can hear it, a soft voice, an ancient knowing, the soul speaking its truth. Plato divided the soul into three parts, three aspects that work together yet often pull against one another. Understanding these parts helps us understand ourselves, the conflicts we feel, the struggles we face, the path toward inner harmony. The first part is the rational soul, located, Plato thought, in the head. This is the part that thinks, reasons, calculates, seeks truth. It is the philosopher within us, the part that asks questions, that wants to understand, that is not satisfied with appearances but seeks the reality beneath. The rational soul loves wisdom. It delights in learning, in clarity, in the beauty of ideas. It is naturally drawn toward the forms, toward what is eternal and unchanging. When the rational soul is in charge, we act with wisdom. We make choices based on understanding rather than impulse. We see clearly, think deeply, govern ourselves well. The rational soul is calm, measured, patient. It does not rush. It considers. It weighs. It seeks the good not just for the moment, but for the long term. Not just for the self, but for the whole. But the rational soul is not alone. The second part is the spirited soul, located in the chest, in the region of the heart. This is the part that feels passion, pride, anger, courage. It is the warrior within us, the part that defends what it loves, that rises up in the face of injustice, that refuses to back down. The spirited soul loves honor. It wants to be recognized, respected, valued. It can be fierce, protective, loyal. When the spirited soul is aligned with reason, it becomes courage. It stands firm in the face of fear. It fights for what is right. It channels passion into noble action. But when the spirited soul is out of balance, it becomes pride, vanity, anger without cause. It seeks honor for its own sake, reacts to every slight, turns aggressive and defensive. The third part is the appetitive soul, located in the belly. This is the part that desires, hungers, craves. It wants food, drink, sex, comfort, pleasure. It is the animal within us, the part tied most closely to the body, to physical needs and sensations. The appetitive soul loves satisfaction. It wants what feels good, what tastes sweet, what brings immediate pleasure. It does not think about consequences or virtue or the good. It simply wants. When the appetitive soul is properly governed, it provides for the body's genuine needs without excess. It enjoys food and drink and rest in moderation. It appreciates the pleasures of life without being enslaved to them. But when the appetitive soul dominates, it becomes greed, lust, gluttony. It consumes without limit, seeks pleasure without restraint, turns the person into a slave of desire. These three parts, rational, spirited, appetitive, live together in the soul, and their relationship determines the quality of our lives. When reason rules, when the spirited soul supports reason, when the appetitive soul obeys both, the soul is healthy, harmonious, at peace. The person lives well, acts virtuously, experiences true happiness. This harmony is what Plato called justice. Not justice in the social sense, but justice within the soul, each part doing its proper work, none overstepping, none neglected. But harmony is rare. More often the parts conflict. Reason knows we should eat moderately, but appetite demands more. Reason counsels patience, but the spirited soul flares in anger. The appetitive soul pulls toward pleasure, the spirited soul toward honor. and reason struggles to hold the reins. This conflict is exhausting, confusing, painful. It is the source of much of our suffering. Plato's image of the chariot captures this perfectly. The charioteer is reason, trying to steer toward the good. One horse is the spirited soul, noble but strong-willed. The other horse is the appetitive soul, wild and hard to control. If the charioteer is skilled, if he can manage both horses, the chariot moves smoothly toward its destination. But if one horse bolts, if the charioteer loses his grip, the chariot veers off course, crashes, fails to reach where it is meant to go. We know this struggle intimately. We have all felt reason and desire at war within us. We have all known what we should do and done something else anyway. We have all experienced the frustration of wanting to be better, wiser, more disciplined, yet finding ourselves pulled by forces we cannot seem to master. This is the human condition, and Plato does not pretend it is easy. But he does offer hope. The soul can be trained. The parts can be brought into alignment. Through philosophy, through the practice of caring for the soul, through the cultivation of wisdom and self-knowledge, we can strengthen reason, enlist the spirited soul in its service, and govern the appetitive soul so that it no longer tyrannizes us. This is the work of a lifetime, but it is the work that matters most. As we rest here, breathing gently, we might notice the different parts within ourselves. The part that wants to sleep, to let go. The part that still thinks, still turns over the day's events. The part that perhaps feels restless, wanting something, seeking comfort. All these parts are us, and all are welcome. We do not need to fight them or silence them. We need only to recognize them, to let reason hold the reins gently, to allow the soul to settle into its natural harmony. Plato's most famous image is the allegory of the cave, a story told in his dialogue The Republic. It is a story about ignorance and enlightenment, about the journey from darkness to light, from illusion to truth. And it is, at its core, a story about the soul. Imagine, Plato says, a group of prisoners who have been chained in a cave since childhood. They are chained in such a way that they cannot turn their heads, cannot look behind them. All they can see is the wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire burns, and between the fire and the prisoners, people carry objects, statues, puppets, figures of animals and humans. The fire casts shadows of these objects onto the wall, and the prisoners, having never seen anything else, believe the shadows are real. They give them names, tell stories about them, compete to predict what shadow will appear next. The shadows are their entire reality. But suppose one prisoner is freed. Suppose his chains are removed and he is forced to stand, to turn around, to face the fire. At first, the light hurts his eyes. He is confused, disoriented. The objects by the fire seem less real to him than the shadows he has always known. He wants to turn back, to return to the familiar darkness. But he is dragged further, pulled out of the cave into the sunlight. Now the pain is even greater. The brightness is overwhelming. He cannot see anything. He is blinded, terrified. But gradually his eyes adjust. He begins to see the world as it truly is. Trees, sky, rivers, animals, people. He sees that the shadows in the cave were only reflections, dim copies of real things. And finally, he looks up and sees the sun itself, the source of all light, all life, all truth. This is the journey of the soul, Plato tells us. Most of us live in the cave, chained by ignorance, mistaking shadows for reality. We live on the surface of things, believing what we see and hear and touch, never questioning whether there might be something deeper, something more real. We are content with appearances, with opinions, with the stories we tell ourselves. We do not realize we are prisoners. But the philosopher is the one who is freed. Through the practice of questioning, of seeking truth, of caring for the soul, the philosopher begins to turn away from the shadows. It is painful at first. It is disorienting to leave behind what we have always believed, to question what seems obvious, to step into the unknown. But the philosopher persists, drawn by a longing for truth, a sense that there must be more than this. And gradually, the soul ascends. It moves from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge. It sees beyond appearances to the forms, to the eternal truths that underlie all changing things. It understands that the physical world is not the ultimate reality, but a reflection, a shadow of something higher. And at the peak of this journey, the soul encounters the form of the good, the highest truth, the source of all being and knowledge, symbolized by the sun. But the journey does not end there. Plato insists that the enlightened philosopher must return to the cave. He must go back down into the darkness, back to where the prisoners remain, and try to free them. This is difficult, perhaps more difficult than the ascent. The prisoners do not want to be freed. They are comfortable with their chains, attached to their shadows. When the philosopher tells them the shadows are not real, they laugh at him, think him mad, may even threaten him. This is what happened to Socrates. He returned to the cave, tried to awaken his fellow Athenians, and they killed him for it. Yet Plato believed this was the philosopher's duty, to seek truth, to care for the soul, and to help others do the same, no matter the cost. The allegory of the cave is not just a story about epistemology, about knowledge and ignorance. It is a story about the soul's journey, about the transformation that happens when we turn away from the surface and seek the depths. It is about the pain of growth, the resistance we face, the courage it takes to leave the familiar behind. And it is about the responsibility that comes with enlightenment, the call to return, to serve, to help others find their way. As we lie here in the darkness, perhaps we are like those prisoners, comfortable in our cave, content with shadows. Or perhaps we are in the process of turning, of being, dragged toward the light, feeling the discomfort of change, the pain of new sight. Wherever we are on the journey, we can trust that the soul knows the way. It has made this journey before, and it will make it again. We need only to keep moving, keep questioning, keep seeking the light. Plato believed the soul was immortal, eternal, indestructible. This was not wishful thinking or religious faith, but a conclusion he reached through philosophical argument. He offered several proofs for the soul's immortality, each one building on the idea that the soul is fundamentally different from the body, not subject to the same laws, not vulnerable to the same fate. The body is composite. It is made of parts, flesh, bone, blood, organs, that come together for a time and then fall apart. Birth is the gathering of these parts, death their dispersal. The body grows, ages, decays. It is subject to change, to disease, to dissolution. It is, in Plato's terms, part of the physical world, the world of becoming, where everything is in flux. Nothing stays the same. But the soul is simple, not composite. It has no parts that can be separated. It is unified, indivisible, whole, and what is indivisible cannot fall apart, cannot decay, cannot die. The soul, therefore, is immune to the fate that befalls the body. It cannot be destroyed. Moreover, the soul is the principle of life. It is what makes living things alive. Death is the absence of the soul, not the destruction of it. When the soul leaves the body dies. But the soul does not die. It simply departs, goes elsewhere, continues to exist in another realm. Plato also argued that the soul must be immortal because it can grasp eternal truths. The forms, beauty, justice, goodness, are eternal, unchanging, perfect. The physical world is temporary, always changing, imperfect. How can something temporary grasp something eternal? How can the mortal know the immortal? Only if the soul itself is eternal, Plato reasoned. Like knows like. The soul can understand the forms because it shares their nature. It is not bound by time, not limited to the physical. It participates in eternity. This is a profound idea, and it changes everything. If the soul is immortal, then death is not the end. It is a transition, a threshold, a doorway. The body falls away, but the soul continues. And if the soul continues, then what matters most is not what happens to the body, but what happens to the soul. Plato tells the myth of at the end of the Republic, a story about a soldier who dies in battle and is given a vision of what happens to souls after death. sees souls being judged according to how they lived, the just ascending to a place of reward, the unjust descending to a place of punishment. After a time, the souls return to be reborn, to begin another life. But before they are reborn, they must choose their next life from among many options. Some souls, having suffered in their previous lives, choose wisely. Others, still ignorant, choose poorly, drawn by wealth or power or pleasure, not realizing the misery these choices will bring. The myth is rich with symbolism and open to many interpretations, but its central message is clear. The soul's choices matter, not just in this life but across many lives. The soul carries the consequences of its actions. What we do shapes what we become, and the soul, being eternal, has many opportunities to learn, to grow, to purify itself, to move closer to truth and goodness. This idea of reincarnation, of the soul passing through many lives, was common in ancient Greek thought, especially in the mystical traditions like Orphism and Pythagoreanism that influenced Plato. But Plato was not merely repeating tradition. He was using the idea to make a philosophical point. The soul is immortal, and therefore we must care for it above all else. We must live in such a way that the soul is nourished, not corrupted, that it grows in wisdom and virtue, not in ignorance and vice. If we believe the soul is temporary, that death is the end, then it makes sense to pursue pleasure, to seek comfort, to accumulate what we can in the short time we have. But if the soul is eternal, if it continues beyond death, if it carries the weight of our choices, then we must live differently. We must ask not what feels good, but what is good for the soul. We must prioritize wisdom over pleasure, virtue over reputation, the eternal over the fleeting. This is not easy. It requires discipline, self-knowledge, constant vigilance. It means going against the grain of society, resisting the pull of the appetitive soul, training the spirited soul to support reason rather than pride. But Plato believed it was the only way to live a truly good life, a life that honors the soul's true nature. And there is comfort in this teaching. If the soul is immortal, then we are more than these fragile bodies, more than the roles we play, more than the successes and failures that fill our days. We are eternal beings, passing through time, learning, growing, moving toward something higher. Death is not annihilation, but transformation. Grief is not the end of love, but a temporary separation. And the work we do on ourselves, the care we give to the soul, is never wasted. It endures. As we breathe here, slowly, we might feel a sense of relief. We are not just these bodies, subject to time and decay. We are souls, eternal, indestructible, connected to something vast and true. We can rest in this knowledge. Let it hold us. Let it ease the fear that so often grips us in the dark. Plato's theory of the forms is central to his entire philosophy, and it is intimately connected to his understanding of the soul. The forms are the eternal, perfect templates of all things. The form of beauty is not this or that beautiful thing, a sunset, a face, a song, but beauty itself, the essence of beauty, unchanging, perfect, existing beyond time and space. Everything beautiful in this world is beautiful only insofar as it participates in the form of beauty. The same is true for all qualities and all things. There is a form of justice, a form of courage, a form of the good. There are forms for physical objects too, a form of chair, a form of tree. These forms are not inventions of the mind. They are real, more real than the physical things we see and touch because they are eternal and unchanging, while physical things are temporary and always in flux. Plato came to this conclusion through a simple observation. We recognize things. We see a particular chair and know it is a chair. We witness a particular act and know it is just or unjust. How is this possible? How do we recognize particulars as instances of a general category? Plato's answer: because we know the form. The soul, in its pre-earthly existence, knew the forms directly. When it encounters a physical chair, it recognizes it as a chair because it remembers, however dimly, the form of chair. This is why learning is recollection. We are not discovering something new, but remembering something the soul already knows. The physical world, then, is a world of shadows, reflections, imperfect copies of the forms. It is like a painting of a tree, which is a copy of a physical tree, which is itself a copy of the form of tree. The painting is twice removed from reality. It is not the tree itself, and the tree itself is not the true reality, but only a participant in the form. This might sound abstract, even strange, but Plato was pointing to something we all experience. We have a sense of perfection, an ideal that the world never quite matches. We see beautiful things, but none is beauty itself. We encounter just actions, but none is perfect justice. We long for something more, something higher, something that does not fade or fail. This longing, Plato believed, is the soul's memory of the forms, the soul's recognition that it belongs to another realm, a realm of truth and perfection. The goal of philosophy, then, is to ascend from the shadows to the forms, to turn away from the physical world and toward the eternal. This does not mean abandoning the world or despising the body. Plato was not a complete dualist who saw matter as evil, but he did believe the soul's true home is not here, that earthly life is a kind of exile, and that the philosopher's task is to return, to remember, to reconnect with the eternal. This ascent happens through reason, through the practice of dialectic, the method of questioning and refining ideas, of moving from particular cases to general principles, from opinions to knowledge. The soul rises step by step, from the realm of physical objects to the realm of mathematical truths, which are abstract, unchanging, though still dependent on the forms, and finally, to the forms themselves. At the peak of this ascent is the form of the good, the highest form, the source of all other forms, the ultimate truth and reality. The form of the good is like the sun in the allegory of the cave. It is the source of light, the source of life, the source of all that is true and real. Just as the sun makes physical vision possible, the form of the good makes intellectual vision possible. It illuminates the other forms, allows the soul to see them, to understand them. Without the good, there would be no truth, no knowledge, no reality. What is the good? Plato never gives a final, clear answer. Some scholars think it is God, or something like God. Others think it is a principle, a structure, the order of being itself. But Plato seems to suggest that the good is beyond definition, beyond description. It can only be approached, glimpsed, known through long study and the purification of the soul. And this is the philosopher's quest, to know the good, to see it clearly, to align the soul with it. This is the highest happiness, the ultimate fulfillment. Not pleasure, not honor, not power, but the vision of the good, the union of the soul with truth. For most of us, this seems impossibly remote, something for saints or sages, not for ordinary people living ordinary lives. But Plato believed it was the calling of every soul, the purpose for which we exist. We may not reach the final vision in this life, but we can move toward it. We can care for the soul, seek wisdom, practice virtue, turn away from shadows, and toward light. Each step on this path is its own reward, bringing clarity, peace, a sense of coming home. As we rest here, we might allow ourselves to feel that longing, that pull toward something higher. It is not a lack or a failing. It is the soul's deepest truth, its memory of where it came from, its desire to return. We can trust that longing. It will guide us if we let it. For Plato, the care of the soul is the most important task of life. Everything else, wealth, reputation, physical health, is secondary. These things have value, but only insofar as they serve the soul. If they harm the soul, they are worse than worthless. Socrates, in Plato's Apology, tells the Athenians that he has spent his life going around the city urging people to care for their souls, to seek wisdom and virtue, to value what is truly valuable. This, he says, is his mission, given to him by the god Apollo, and he will not stop, even if they threaten him with death, because he knows the soul matters more than life itself. To care for the soul means, first, to know yourself. The famous inscription at the temple of Apollo at Delphi, "Know thyself," was, for Socrates and Plato, the beginning of all wisdom. Most people do not know themselves. They are strangers to their own souls, unaware of their true desires, their real motives, their deepest beliefs. They live on autopilot, driven by habit and impulse, never pausing to examine who they are or why they do what they do. But the unexamined life, Socrates said, is not worth living. To live well, we must examine ourselves constantly, asking questions, testing our beliefs, seeking to understand what we truly value and why. This examination is not comfortable. It often reveals unpleasant truths, that we are hypocritical, that we are ignorant, that we are not as virtuous as we thought. But this discomfort is necessary. It is the beginning of growth. To care for the soul also means to pursue virtue. Virtue, for Plato, is not just moral goodness in a narrow sense. It is excellence, the perfection of the soul's capacities. Each part of the soul has its virtue. Wisdom for the rational part, courage for the spirited part, temperance for the appetitive part. When all three are present and harmonized, the result is justice, the virtue of the whole soul. Virtue is not something we are born with, though we have the capacity for it, nor is it something we can acquire through luck or external circumstances. Virtue is a state of the soul, developed through practice, through habituation, through the constant effort to align our actions with reason and the good. It is like learning to play an instrument or master a craft. It takes time, discipline, repetition, but the result is a soul that is healthy, strong, beautiful, and virtue, Plato believed, is its own reward. Virtus. Person is happy not because virtue brings external benefits, though it may, but because the soul itself is in good condition. Just as a healthy body feels good, a healthy soul feels good. It is at peace, free from the chaos and conflict that torment the soul ruled by desire or ambition. It knows what it is doing and why. It is whole. To care for the soul also means to seek wisdom, to practice philosophy. Philosophy, Plato said, is the love of wisdom. It is not the possession of wisdom. Only the gods possess that, but the constant pursuit of it, the desire to know, to understand, to see clearly. This pursuit takes many forms: questioning assumptions, engaging in dialogue, studying the great ideas, contemplating the forms, examining one's own life. But philosophy is not just intellectual. It is a way of life, a practice that shapes the soul. The philosopher is someone who has turned away from the cave, who is ascending toward the light, who is learning to see beyond appearances to reality. This is difficult, as we have said. It requires courage to question what everyone believes, to stand apart from the crowd, to endure the loneliness and misunderstanding that often come with the pursuit of truth. But the philosopher is sustained by the vision of the good, by the love of wisdom, by the knowledge that this is what the soul is made for. And in caring for the soul, the philosopher finds a happiness that does not depend on external things. Peace that the world cannot give or take away. Plato also believed that caring for the soul involves purification, a process of cleansing the soul from the stains and distractions of bodily existence. The body, with its desires and pains, its needs and pleasures, constantly pulls the soul downward, toward the physical, the temporary, the illusory. To free the soul, we must practice detachment, learning to moderate our desires, to endure discomfort, to not be ruled by fear or pleasure. This does not mean hating the body or denying its needs. Plato was not an ascetic in the extreme sense, but he did believe that the soul must be the master, the body the servant. We should care for the body as we would care for a tool, keeping it in good working order, but not becoming enslaved to it, not letting it dictate the terms of our lives. In some dialogues, Plato speaks of philosophy as a practice of dying, a rehearsal for death. This sounds grim, but what he meant is that philosophy trains us to identify with the soul rather than the body, to recognize that we are not these physical forms, but the eternal soul within. When death comes, the philosopher is ready. He has already learned to let go of the body, to see it as temporary, to know that the soul continues. Death, then, is not a tragedy, but a liberation, a release, a return to the soul's true home. As we lie here, breathing slowly, we might practice this letting go. We might notice the body, its weight, its warmth, its small discomforts, and we might gently turn our attention inward, to the awareness that notices these things, to the presence that is here beneath all the sensations. This presence is the soul, quiet and still, untouched by the body's changes, eternal in the midst of the temporary. We can rest in this presence, trust it, know that it is who we truly are. Plato's vision of the self is radically different from many modern understandings. Today we often think of The self as the sum of our experiences, our memories, our personality traits, our social roles. The self is constructed, fluid, contingent. It changes over time, shaped by culture and history and personal choice. But for Plato, the self is the soul, and the soul is eternal, unchanging in its essence. It has existed forever and will exist forever. It passes through many lives, many bodies, many experiences, but it remains fundamentally the same. The soul is not created by experience. It is the experiencer, the constant subject beneath all the changing objects of awareness. This does not mean the soul does not grow or change in certain ways. It does. It can become more wise or more ignorant, more virtuous or more corrupt. It can remember the forms or forget them. But these are changes in the soul's state, not in its essence. The soul's nature as rational, as immortal, as capable of knowing truth, does not change. So who are you, really? For Plato, you are not your body, which will die. You are not your social identity, your job, your relationships, all of which are temporary. You are not even your thoughts or emotions, which come and go, rise and fall. You are the soul, the eternal witness, the part of you that knows, that chooses, that seeks the good. This is both humbling and exalting. Humbling because it reminds us that much of what we think defines us is actually superficial, temporary, not truly us. Exalting because it means we are more than we often believe, connected to something eternal, capable of knowing truth, destined for something higher than the fleeting pleasures and pains of earthly life. Understanding the self as soul also changes how we relate to others. If everyone is, at their core, an immortal soul, then we are all fundamentally equal, all deserving of respect, all on the same journey. The differences between us, wealth, status, beauty, intelligence, are superficial, accidents of birth or fortune, not markers of true worth. What matters is the state of the soul, and that is something each person must tend for themselves. Plato's political philosophy, laid out in the Republic, is built on this understanding. The just society is one where each person does the work suited to their soul, where the rational rule, the spirited defend, and the producers provide, all in harmony. But the just society begins with the just soul. We cannot create justice in the world if we do not first create it within ourselves. The care of the soul is not a private, selfish endeavor. It is the foundation of all goodness, personal and political. And so we return, again and again, to the soul. It is the center, the core, the truth of who we are. Everything else revolves around it. When we care for the soul, everything else falls into place. When we neglect the soul, nothing else can satisfy. As we rest in the darkness, breathing softly, we might feel a sense of gratitude for this ancient wisdom, for the voice of Plato reaching across the centuries, reminding us of what matters, calling us home to ourselves. Plato's influence on Western thought cannot be overstated. For over 2,000 years, philosophers, theologians, poets, and scientists have engaged with his ideas, building on them, arguing against them, reinterpreting them for new ages. The British philosopher Alfred North Whitehead famously said that all of Western philosophy is a series of footnotes to Plato. This is an exaggeration, but it captures something true. Plato set the agenda, asked the questions, established the frameworks that have shaped how we think about reality, knowledge, ethics, politics, beauty, love. His theory of the forms influenced Christian theology, particularly through the work of early church fathers like Augustine, who saw Plato's eternal forms as divine ideas in the mind of God. His dualism of soul and body shaped centuries of Christian thought about the afterlife, sin, and salvation. The medieval scholastics, like Thomas Aquinas, engaged deeply with Plato, and Aristotle, Plato's student, synthesizing ancient philosophy with Christian doctrine. In the Renaissance, Plato's works were rediscovered and translated, sparking a revival of Platonic thought that influenced art, literature, and science. The Neoplatonists, like Plotinus, had already reinterpreted Plato in mystical terms, and this tradition continued through the Renaissance, shaping thinkers like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola. In the modern era, Plato has been both celebrated and criticized. Rationalists like Descartes admired his emphasis on reason and the immaterial soul. Romantics like the poets Wordsworth and Coleridge found in Plato a kindred spirit, with his vision of the soul's longing for the eternal. But others, like Nietzsche, attacked Plato for devaluing this world in favor of an imaginary one, for creating a philosophy that denies life, that prefers the abstract to the concrete, the ideal to the real. Plato's political philosophy has also been controversial. Some see the Republic as a blueprint for totalitarianism, with its philosopher kings, its rigid class structure, its suppression of individual freedom in favor of the collective good. Others argue that Plato was not proposing a literal political program, but using the idea of the just city as a metaphor for the just soul, exploring what it would mean for reason to rule. Whatever the criticisms, Plato's ideas remain vital, alive, generative. They continue to provoke, to challenge, to inspire. They force us to ask, what is real? What is good? What is the self? How should we live? These are not questions that can be answered once and for all. They are the questions of philosophy itself, the questions each generation must ask anew. And in our own time, Plato's vision of the soul speaks with particular urgency. We live in an age that often reduces the self to the brain, consciousness to neurons, the soul to an illusion. We are told we are nothing but matter, products of evolution, determined by genes and environment, without freedom, without depth, without transcendence. This view can be liberating in some ways, freeing us from old superstitions and dogmas. But it can also be impoverishing, stripping life of meaning, reducing the rich complexity of human experience to mechanical processes. Plato offers an alternative. He reminds us that we are more than matter, more than bodies, more than the sum of our biological functions. We are souls, capable of knowing truth, choosing good, creating beauty, loving one another. We are connected to something eternal, something that gives life depth and meaning and purpose. We do not have to accept the reductionist picture. We can reclaim the soul, not as religious dogma but as lived experience, as the recognition of our own depth, our own mystery, our own potential. This does not require us to believe everything Plato taught. We do not have to accept the theory of forms in its literal sense, or the idea of reincarnation, or the details of the tripartite soul. But we can take the core insight. The soul is real, the soul matters, and caring for the soul is the work of a lifetime. As we breathe here gently, we might sense that truth for ourselves. We might notice the part of us that is aware, that is present, that is not caught in the stream of thoughts and sensations. This awareness is the soul, and it is always here, always now, always free. We can turn toward it, rest in it, trust it to guide us. Plato's dialogues are not dry philosophical treatises. They are living conversations, full of drama, humor, irony, beauty. Plato was a master of language, a poet as well as a philosopher. He knew that philosophy is not just about arguments and proofs, but about awakening the soul, stirring something deep within the reader, inviting them into the quest for wisdom. The dialogues usually feature Socrates as the main character, engaging with various interlocutors, young men eager to learn, sophists claiming to teach virtue, politicians confident in their knowledge, poets and craftsmen and generals. Socrates questions them, often revealing that they do not know what they claim to know, that their beliefs are confused or contradictory. This process, called the Socratic method or elenchus, is not meant to humiliate but to help. By exposing ignorance, Socrates creates space for real learning, for the recognition that we do not know, which is the beginning of wisdom. Some dialogues, called aporetic, end in aporia, a state of puzzlement without a final answer. Socrates and his partner have examined a question: what is courage? What is piety? And found that none of their proposed answers hold up. This can be frustrating, but it is also liberating. It clears away false certainties, opens the mind, prepares the soul for deeper inquiry. Other dialogues move toward positive conclusions, constructing elaborate theories, like the theory of forms in Phaedo, or the vision of the just city in the Republic. But even these are not dogmatic. Plato invites the reader to think along with him, to test the arguments, to question, to engage actively rather than passively accept. Reading Plato is an experience of the soul. The dialogues draw us in, make us participants, challenge us to think and feel and question. They are not just about conveying information, but about transforming the reader, awakening the love of wisdom, guiding the soul toward truth. And this is why Plato's work endures. It is not a set of doctrines to memorize, but a living invitation to philosophy, to the examined life, to the care of the soul. Each reader, in each age, can enter the dialogues anew, finding in them something fresh, something relevant, something that speaks to their own journey. As we rest here, we are in a sense reading Plato, not with our eyes but with our souls. We are listening to his voice, faint but clear across the centuries, calling us to wake up, to remember, to seek the light. There is a sadness in Plato's philosophy, a recognition that this world is not our home, that we are exiles, that the soul longs for something it cannot find here. This longing, this sense of incompleteness, runs through all his work. It is the ache of the prisoner in the cave, yearning for the light. It is the lover in Symposium, reaching for beauty that cannot be fully grasped. It is the philosopher in Phaedo, awaiting death with calm, because he knows it is a return, a going home. But there is also joy, a deep, quiet joy that comes from the knowledge that the soul is eternal, that we are part of something greater, that the journey has a destination. The philosopher who has seen the form of the good, even for a moment, is filled with a happiness that nothing can touch. Not pleasure, which fades, not honor, which depends on others, but the happiness of knowing truth, of being aligned with the eternal, of living in accordance with the soul's true nature. This joy is available to all of us, Plato believed, not just to philosophers in ivory towers. It is the birthright of every soul. We need only to turn, to care, to seek. The path is long and it is difficult, but it is also the only path that leads to lasting fulfillment. And so we are invited, gently, quietly, to walk this path, to examine our lives, to question our beliefs, to purify our souls, to turn away from the shadows and toward the light, to remember what we once knew and have forgotten, to care for the soul above all else, knowing that this is the work that matters, the work that endures. As we lie here in the darkness, breathing softly, we might feel the presence of something ancient, something eternal, something that has been waiting patiently for us to notice it. The soul, quiet and still, always here, always now. We can rest in this presence, trust it, let it hold us as we drift toward sleep. Plato's teachings on love are among the most beautiful and profound in all philosophy. In the Dialogue Symposium, Plato presents a series of speeches about love, culminating in the speech of Socrates, who recounts what he learned from a wise woman named Diotima. Love, Diotima teaches, is not a god but a spirit, a force that mediates between the human and the divine, between the mortal and the immortal. Love begins with the physical, with the attraction to a beautiful body. This is natural, good, the starting point. But love does not end there. If we follow love's path, we begin to see that beauty is not confined to one body. We notice beauty in other bodies, and we realize that physical beauty itself is one thing, a quality that many bodies share. Our love expands, becomes less attached to the particular, more drawn to the universal. From the love of beautiful bodies, we ascend to the love of beautiful souls. We realize that the beauty of the soul is greater than the beauty of the body, more lasting, more real. We fall in love with virtue, with wisdom, with the qualities that make a person truly beautiful. And from there, we ascend further to the love of beautiful practices and laws, of beautiful knowledge, of beauty itself. At the top of this ladder of love is the form of beauty, eternal, perfect, unchanging. To see this form is the goal of love, the culmination of the erotic journey, and the one who sees it is filled with wonder, with joy, with a love that is no longer possessive or needy but pure, selfless, a love that participates in the eternal. This is what Plato calls Platonic love, though the term has been misunderstood. It is not the absence of eros, the absence of desire. It is the perfection of eros, the transformation of desire from the physical to the spiritual, from the particular to the universal, from the mortal to the immortal. And this journey of love is, once again, a journey of the soul. Love is the force that draws the soul upward, that awakens the longing for the eternal, that moves us from ignorance to knowledge, from the cave to the light. Love is the engine of philosophy, the desire that drives us to seek wisdom, to care for the soul, to become who we truly are. For Plato, love and philosophy are inseparable. The philosopher is a lover of wisdom, a lover of truth, a lover of the good. And the lover, if he follows love's path, becomes a philosopher, ascending from the physical to the spiritual, from the shadows to the forms. As we rest here, we might feel this love stirring within us, not as romantic attachment, not as need or longing for another person, but as a deeper pull, a desire for something higher, something more real. This is the soul's love, the love that seeks the eternal, the love that will not rest until it finds its home in truth. Plato knew that the philosophical life is not easy. It requires courage to question everything, to stand apart from the crowd, to pursue truth even when it leads to uncomfortable places. The philosopher is often misunderstood, mocked, rejected. Socrates was executed. Plato himself was nearly sold into slavery during his travels. The pursuit of wisdom does not guarantee worldly success or social acceptance. But Plato also knew that the philosophical life is the only life worth living. Without it, we are sleepwalkers, moving through life without awareness, driven by forces we do not understand, chasing goals that do not satisfy. With it, we are awake, alive, free. We know who we are. We know what matters. We live in alignment with truth. And there is a profound peace in this, a peace that the world cannot give or take away. The philosopher who has cared for his soul, who has pursued wisdom, who has seen even a glimpse of the eternal, is not afraid of death. He knows that death is not the end, but a transition, a release, a return to the soul's true home. He has lived well, and that is enough. Plato tells the story of Socrates' final hours in the dialogue Phaedo. Socrates is in prison, awaiting execution. His friends are with him, grieving, distraught. But Socrates is calm, even cheerful. He spends his last day doing what he has always done, philosophizing, questioning, seeking truth. He discusses the immortality of the soul, offers arguments, invites his friends to think along with him. When the time comes, he drinks the hemlock without hesitation, without fear. His last words are simple, practical. Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Pay the debt and do not neglect it. This is the philosopher's death, calm, deliberate, without regret. Socrates has lived in preparation for this moment, and he is ready. He has cared for his soul, and the soul is eternal. What is there to fear? For Plato, this is the model, the ideal. Not that we should seek death, but that we should live in such a way that death loses its power over us. We should identify with the soul, the eternal part of us, rather than the body, the temporary part. We should pursue what is truly good, truly real, truly lasting. And when death comes, as it must, we can face it with the calm confidence of Socrates, knowing that the soul continues, that the journey goes on. As we breathe here, slowly, deeply, we might practice this, letting go. We might notice the fear of death that lurks in the background of our minds, the anxiety about the future, the clinging to what we know, and we might gently release it, trusting that we are more than this body, that the soul is safe, that death is not the end, but a doorway. We can rest in this trust. Let it ease the fear. Let it open us to the peace that Socrates knew. Plato's philosophy is often described as idealist, meaning that he believed the true reality is not the physical world, but the world of ideas, the forms. This is contrasted with materialism, the view that only matter is real, that everything can be explained in terms of physical processes. But Plato's idealism is not a denial of the physical world. He did not say the physical world does not exist, or that it is worthless. He said it is not the ultimate reality, not the source of truth or goodness or beauty. The physical world is a reflection, a shadow, a participation in the forms. It has value, but only because it points beyond itself to something higher. This distinction is important because it shapes how we live. If we believe the physical world is all there is, then we will focus our energies on acquiring physical things, on maximizing pleasure, on avoiding pain. We will measure our lives by material success, by what we have and what we experience. And when the body fails, when death approaches, we will have nothing to hold on to, nothing that lasts. But if we believe the soul is real, that the forms are real, that there is a dimension of existence beyond the physical, then we will live differently. We will care for the soul, seek wisdom, pursue virtue. We will measure our lives not by what we have, but by who we are, not by fleeting pleasures, but by lasting goods. And when death comes, we will have something that endures, something that death cannot touch. Plato's idealism is not an escape from reality, but a deeper engagement with it. It is an invitation to see beyond the surface, to recognize the depth and mystery of existence, to live in alignment with what is truly real. And in our own time, when materialism often dominates, when we are told that consciousness is just neurons firing, that love is just chemistry, that meaning is just a story we tell ourselves, Plato's idealism is a reminder that there is more. There is depth, there is mystery, there is something that cannot be reduced to matter and motion. We can trust our own experience, our own sense that life has meaning, that beauty is real, that we are more than machines. As we rest here, breathing gently, we might allow ourselves to feel that depth, that mystery. The soul is real, the forms are real. We are part of something vast and eternal. We can rest in this knowledge. Let it hold us. Let it fill us with a quiet sense of wonder. Plato's vision of education is inseparable from his vision of the soul. Education for Plato is not the filling of an empty vessel, but the turning of the soul toward the light. The soul already contains the knowledge it seeks. Education is the process of drawing it out, of awakening it, of helping the soul remember what it has forgotten. This is why Socrates never claimed to teach. He claimed only to help others give birth to the ideas already within them. He called himself a midwife, assisting in the birth of knowledge. The teacher is not an authority who imposes truth from outside, but a guide who helps the student discover truth from within. This has profound implications for how we think about education. It means that every person has the capacity for wisdom, for understanding, for virtue. The soul is not a blank slate, but a source of light waiting to be uncovered. The teacher's role is to remove obstacles, to ask questions, to challenge assumptions, to create the conditions for the soul to awaken. It also means that education is not primarily about skills or information, but about transformation. The goal is not to produce workers or consumers, but to care for the soul, to help it grow in wisdom and virtue, to guide it toward the good. A truly educated person is not someone who knows many facts, but someone whose soul is healthy, harmonious, oriented toward truth. Plato's Republic includes a detailed account of education, describing how the philosopher kings should be trained from childhood. They begin with music and poetry, which shape the soul's loves and desires, teaching it to love what is beautiful and good. Then they study mathematics, which trains the mind to think abstractly, to move beyond the physical to the eternal. Finally, they study dialectic, the art of questioning and reasoning, which brings them to the forms, to the ultimate truths. But this is not just a program for an elite. It is a vision of what all education should be: the care of the soul, the cultivation of wisdom, the turning of the soul toward the light. Indeed, our own time, when education is often reduced to job training, when schools focus on test scores and economic outcomes, Plato's vision is a challenge and an inspiration. It reminds us that education is about more than success or productivity. It is about becoming fully human, about realizing the soul's potential, about living a life of meaning and purpose. And we can apply this vision to our own lives. Even outside formal education, we can commit to the care of our own souls, to the pursuit of wisdom, to the practice of self-examination. We can read, think, question, engage in dialogue with others and with ourselves. We can turn away from distractions, from the easy pleasures that numb the soul, and toward what is true and good and beautiful. This is education in the deepest sense, and it is a lifelong practice. As we breathe here, slowly, we might recommit to this practice. We might resolve to care for the soul, to seek wisdom, to live the examined life, not as a burden or a duty, but as a gift, a privilege, the highest calling of a human being. Plato's influence extends far beyond philosophy. His ideas have shaped art, literature, politics, theology, science, and more. The Renaissance artists drew on Platonic ideals of beauty and proportion. The Romantic poets found in Plato a kindred spirit, with his emphasis on the soul, the eternal, the transcendent. Political theorists have debated his vision of the just state for centuries. Theologians have wrestled with his ideas about God, the soul, and the afterlife. But Plato's greatest legacy may be the questions he asked. What is justice? What is beauty? What is the good? What is the self? How should we live? These are the perennial questions, the questions that every generation must ask anew. Plato did not give us final answers, but he gave us the tools to seek them: reason, dialogue, the love of wisdom, the care of the soul. And in doing so, he created philosophy as we know it. Before Plato, there were thinkers, sages, teachers, but Plato established philosophy as a discipline, a method, a way of life. He showed that rigorous thinking could be beautiful, that the pursuit of truth could be passionate, that the love of wisdom could transform a life. This is his gift to us, across the centuries. We may not agree with all his conclusions. We may find some of his ideas strange or outdated, but we can still engage with the questions, still practice the method, still care for our souls. We can still be philosophers, lovers of wisdom, seekers of truth. As we rest here, breathing gently, we might feel a sense of connection to all those who have walked this path before us. From Socrates and Plato, to the medieval monks, to the Renaissance thinkers, to the philosophers of today, an unbroken chain of souls caring for souls, seeking wisdom, reaching toward the light. We are part of this tradition, this lineage, this ongoing conversation, and we can trust that the work we do on ourselves, the care we give to our own souls, is not isolated or insignificant, but part of something vast and enduring. Plato's philosophy is ultimately a philosophy of hope. It tells us that we are not accidents, not meaningless specks in an indifferent universe, but souls with a purpose, a destiny, a connection to the eternal. It tells us that the suffering and confusion of earthly life are not the final word, that there is something higher, something better, waiting for us. It tells us that we can change, can grow, can become wise and virtuous and good, no matter how far we have strayed. This hope is not naive or wishful thinking. It is grounded in the nature of the soul itself. The soul is immortal, indestructible, capable of knowing truth. The soul has within it the seeds of wisdom, of virtue, of happiness. We need only to tend those seeds, to care for the soul, to let it grow toward its natural perfection. And this is the work of a lifetime, perhaps of many lifetimes. It is not easy. It requires discipline, courage, self-knowledge. It means going against the grain, resisting the pull of desire and ambition, enduring misunderstanding and loneliness. But it is also deeply fulfilling, deeply meaningful, the only path that leads to lasting happiness. Plato does not promise that this path will bring worldly success or ease. The philosopher may be poor, may be scorned, may even be killed, but the philosopher has something the world cannot give or take away: a soul at peace, a mind aligned with truth, a life well lived. As we breathe here, slowly, deeply, we might allow ourselves to feel this hope. We might trust that the soul is real, that it can grow, that the work we do on ourselves matters. We might let go of the fear and doubt that so often grip us, and rest in the knowledge that we are part of something eternal, something good, something that will not fail. Plato teaches that the soul's journey does not end with death. Death is a transition, a shedding of the body, a return to the soul's true home. What happens after death? Plato offers several accounts, presented as myths, stories that point toward truths too deep for literal description. In the myth of air, souls are judged after death and sent to places of reward or punishment, according to how they lived. After a time, they return to be reborn, to live another life, to continue the journey of learning and growth. This cycle continues until the soul is purified, until it has learned what it needs to learn, until it is ready to return to the eternal realm of the forms. In Phaedo, Plato suggests that the philosopher's soul, having been purified through philosophy, having detached from the body and its desires, is freed from the cycle of rebirth. It ascends to the realm of the forms, to dwell there in pure contemplation, in union with the eternal. This is the ultimate goal, the final happiness, the soul's homecoming. These accounts are not meant to be taken as literal descriptions of the afterlife. Plato himself signals that they are myths, stories that convey truth symbolically. The details may not be accurate, but the core message is, the soul continues. The soul is accountable for how it lives. The soul's journey has meaning and purpose. This is both comforting and challenging. Comforting because it means death is not the end, that we will continue, that the work we do on ourselves is not lost. Challenging because it means we are responsible, that our choices matter, that we cannot escape the consequences of how we live. And so the question returns, how should we live? Plato's answer is clear. Care for the soul, seek wisdom, practice virtue, turn away from the shadows and toward the light. Live in such a way that when death comes, the soul is ready, purified, prepared for the next stage of the journey. As we rest here, breathing softly, we might imagine our own journey, the path the soul has traveled, the paths it will travel still. We might see this life as one chapter in a longer story, one step on a journey that began long ago and will continue far into the future. This perspective can ease the anxiety of the moment, can help us see our struggles and sorrows in a larger context, can remind us that we are not alone, that the soul has been through much and will endure. And we might feel, too, a sense of gratitude for this moment, this breath, this quiet rest. The soul is here now, present in the body, experiencing this life. It is a gift, this earthly existence, a chance to learn, to grow, to love, to see beauty, to seek truth. We do not need to rush through it or escape from it. We can be here, fully, even as we remember that we are more than here, that the soul belongs to eternity. Plato's philosophy is difficult in many ways. It demands much of us, to question, to examine, to change. It challenges our assumptions, our habits, our comfortable illusions. It calls us to live at a higher level, to care for the soul above all else, to seek wisdom even when it is hard. But it is also gentle in its way. It meets us where we are. It does not condemn us for our ignorance or our failings. It recognizes that we are souls in bodies, caught between the eternal and the temporal, struggling to find our way. It offers guidance, support, encouragement. It reminds us that we are not alone, that others have walked this path, that the truth is there, waiting to be found. And it offers a vision of life that is deeply meaningful, deeply fulfilling. The philosophical life is not a life of grim duty or joyless striving. It is a life of wonder, of beauty, of love. It is a life attuned to the deepest truths, the highest goods, the most real realities. It is a life that makes sense, that has coherence and purpose and direction. We may not reach the final vision in this life. We may not see the form of the good, may not achieve perfect wisdom or perfect virtue, but we can move toward it. We can take steps, however small, on the path. And each step brings its own reward, its own light, its own peace. As we breathe here, gently, we might allow ourselves to rest in this vision, to let it hold us, to let it ease the burdens we carry. We are souls on a journey. We are learning, growing, becoming. We are cared for by something greater than ourselves, guided by truth, sustained by the eternal. We can trust this process, trust the soul's wisdom, trust that we are exactly where we need to be. Plato's writings are filled with moments of beauty, passages that lift the soul, that speak to something deep within us. The myth of the charioteer, the allegory of the cave, the ladder of love, the vision of the good. These are not just philosophical arguments, but works of art, images that capture truths too profound for plain speech. Plato knew that philosophy is not just about logic and analysis. It is also about imagination, about story, about the power of language to move and transform. The dialogues are literature as much as philosophy, crafted with care, filled with drama and character and emotion. Reading them is an aesthetic experience, not just an intellectual one. And this is fitting, because beauty is one of the forms, one of the eternal truths the soul seeks. Beauty is not just decoration or pleasure. It is a revelation, a glimpse of the eternal, a reminder of what the soul once knew. When we encounter true beauty, in art, in nature, in a person, in an idea, we are moved because we are remembering recognizing something that calls to the soul, that draws it upward. Plato believed that beauty and truth are connected, that the beautiful is true, and the true is beautiful. The philosopher seeks beauty as much as wisdom, because beauty is a path to the forms, a way the eternal shows itself in the world of time. As we rest here, we might allow ourselves to feel the beauty of this moment, this quiet, this darkness, this breath. There is beauty in stillness, in silence, in the simple presence of the soul. We do not need grand visions or profound insights. We need only to be here, to notice, to let the soul rest in what is. And we might feel gratitude for Plato, for his gift of words, of images, of ideas that have sustained seekers for thousands of years. His voice is still with us, still guiding us, still calling us toward the light. The soul, for Plato, is not isolated or alone. It is connected to other souls, to the cosmos, to the divine. The universe itself, Plato suggests in the Timaeus, is a living being with a soul, ordered and beautiful, created by a divine craftsman who wanted to make the world as good as possible. This vision of the cosmos as ensouled, as alive, as purposeful, stands in stark contrast to the mechanistic view that would later dominate Western thought. For Plato, the universe is not a machine, not dead matter following blind laws. It is a living whole, infused with intelligence, beauty, purpose. The stars and planets move in perfect circles, imitating the eternal forms, participating in the divine order. And we, as souls, are part of this cosmic order. We are not accidents or anomalies, but integral to the whole, each of us with a role, a purpose, a connection to the larger pattern. To care for our own souls is also to contribute to the harmony of the cosmos, to align ourselves with the divine order, to participate in the good. This gives our individual lives a significance beyond themselves. What we do matters, not just for us, but for the whole. The health of our soul affects the health of the world. The light we bring to our own darkness is a light that shines in the cosmic darkness as well. As we breathe here, slowly, we might sense this connection, this participation in something larger. We are not isolated selves, but souls woven into a great web of being, connected to everything, part of a living whole. We can rest in this connection, trust it, know that we belong. Plato's philosophy is sometimes accused of being otherworldly, of devaluing this life in favor of an imaginary afterlife, of encouraging passivity and resignation. But this is a misunderstanding. Plato did not say we should ignore this world or stop caring about earthly things. He said we should see them in their proper context, should not mistake them for ultimate reality, should not let them enslave us. The philosopher, having seen the forms, having glimpsed the eternal, returns to the world with greater clarity, greater compassion, greater effectiveness. He is not detached in the sense of uncaring. He is detached in the sense of not being ruled by fear or desire, not being thrown off balance by pleasure or pain. This detachment makes him freer, more capable of acting wisely, more able to contribute to the good. Plato's own life bears this out. He was not a hermit or a mystic withdrawn from the world. He founded a school, taught students, engaged in politics, wrote extensively. He cared deeply about the state of Athens, about justice, about the well-being of souls. His philosophy was not an escape, but a foundation, a source of strength and wisdom for engaging with the world. And this is what the care of the soul enables. It does not remove us from life, but grounds us in it, gives us a stable center from which to act, a clarity of vision that sees what truly matters. The philosopher is not less involved in the world, but more truly involved, acting from wisdom rather than impulse, from virtue rather than self-interest. As we rest here, breathing gently, we might reflect on our own engagement with the world. How can we bring the care of the soul into our daily lives, our relationships, our work? How can we act from the soul's wisdom rather than the body's desires or the ego's fears? This is the practical application of Plato's philosophy, the way it lives in the world, the way it makes a difference. Plato teaches that the soul can know truth, can see the forms, can align itself with the eternal. But how? How does this knowledge come about? Not through the senses, which can only perceive the changing, imperfect physical world. Not through opinion or belief, which can be mistaken. True knowledge comes through reason, through the soul's own power of understanding, through the practice of dialectic. Dialectic is the method of philosophy, the art of questioning and reasoning, of moving from particular cases to general principles, from opinions to knowledge. It is the process by which the soul ascends from the shadows to the forms, from ignorance to wisdom. Socrates practiced dialectic constantly, engaging in dialogue with others, asking questions, testing answers, refining ideas. The dialogues Plato wrote are examples of dialectic in action, showing how the method works, how it can lead to insight and truth. But dialectic is not just a technique, it is a way of living, a constant questioning, a refusal to settle for easy answers or conventional wisdom. The dialectical life is the examined life, the life that is always seeking, always growing, always moving toward greater clarity. And this is what Plato calls us to, a life of constant inquiry, of never being satisfied with where we are, of always reaching for something higher, not out of dissatisfaction or restlessness, but out of love, the love of wisdom, the desire to know, to understand, to see clearly. As we rest here, we might practice this gentle questioning, this dialectical spirit. We might ask ourselves, what do I truly believe? What do I truly value? Am I living in alignment with what I know to be true? These questions are not meant to disturb our rest, but to deepen it, to help the soul settle into its own truth. Plato's vision of the soul is vast, intricate, beautiful. It encompasses the soul's origin, its nature, its journey, its destiny. It speaks to our deepest longings, our highest aspirations, our most profound questions. And it offers a path, a way of living that honors the soul, that cares for it, that allows it to flourish. This path is not easy, but it is deeply rewarding. It is the path of wisdom, of virtue, of truth. It is the path that leads from the shadows to the light, from ignorance to knowledge, from the cave to the sun. It is the path of the philosopher, the lover of wisdom, the one who cares for the soul above all else. And this path is open to all of us. We do not need to be scholars or sages. We need only to turn, to care, to seek. The soul is already within us, waiting. The truth is already there, ready to be remembered. The light is already shining, ready to be seen. As we breathe here, slowly, deeply, we might feel the soul's readiness, its eagerness to awaken, to remember, to return to its true home. We can trust this readiness, this longing. It is the deepest truth of who we are, the soul's own voice, calling us toward the good. And so we rest, we breathe, we let go. We let the soul do its work. Let it settle. Let it remember. We do not need to force or strive. We need only to be present, to allow, to receive. The soul knows the way. It has always known. And in this moment, in this quiet darkness, it is gently, patiently, lovingly leading us home. Plato's teachings on the soul and the self are not just historical curiosities, relics of an ancient worldview. They are living wisdom, as relevant today as they were in 4th century Athens. They speak to our own experience, our own struggles, our own deepest questions about who we are and what our lives mean. In a world that often reduces us to our roles, our productivity, our possessions, Plato reminds us that we are souls, eternal and irreducible. In a culture that worships pleasure and success, Plato calls us to seek wisdom and virtue. In an age of distraction and noise, Plato invites us to turn inward, to care for the soul, to seek the quiet center where truth resides. This is the gift Plato offers us across the centuries, not a set of doctrines to believe, not a system to master, but an invitation to philosophy, to the examined life, to the care of the soul. It is an invitation to wake up, to see clearly, to live fully. It is an invitation to become who we truly are. And as we rest here, breathing softly, drifting toward sleep, we might accept this invitation. We might resolve, gently, quietly, to care for our souls, to seek wisdom, to turn toward the light. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now, in this moment, with this breath. The soul is ready. It has been waiting. And the journey, the great journey from the shadows to the sun, from ignorance to wisdom, from the cave to the eternal light, can begin right here, right now, in the quiet darkness of this night. Rest now. The soul is safe. The soul is eternal. The soul is home.